is the Will Cain Podcast on ESPN Radio.
Buckle up, because I'm not going to be making any friends today. Strap it in. Let's get after it. The only people who are going to want to hear what I have to say are people that are interested in the truth. No teams, no friends, no happy talk. The revolution today is only centered around the truth. And sometimes the truth is lonely. It's the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app, presented by Progressive Insurance. I want to get to today LaVar Ball, ESPN, NBA coaches. Who's in the right? Who's in the wrong? This isn't going to be as simple and clean as you want it to be. This isn't going to be as easy as, are you with LaVar? Are you against LaVar? One thing at the end of this I'm going to make sure of is, are we on the side of being accurate and truthful? Who would you rather have? Bill Belichick or Nick Saban? I mean, if we lived in this fantasy world, if you got to have your pick between the two greatest football coaches of all time, the greatest college football coach and the greatest professional football coach, which would you choose? Who would you want for your team? But we start with this. Should that hypothetical become a reality? Should Nick Saban be considering? Should it enter his mind? Should he be entertain the thought of going to the NFL? It's time for Straight Talk. Brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts. Nick Saban doesn't need the NFL. He doesn't need to be redeemed from his experience with the Dolphins. I'm not even sure he'd be very good at being an NFL coach, and I don't think it matters. I don't care what he could, did, or would do in the NFL. It has no impact on his legacy and his position in the debate over who is the greatest football coach of all time. And yet there are still some who say this is something that we should perhaps consider for Nick Saban. Here's Paul Feinbaum.
I think that is possible. I just don't think the Giants are probable. Let's say Cleveland or someone comes to Nick Saban like the Raiders did with John Gruden and says, here, Nick, fill in the blank. I mean, is there a number that would interest you? Is it $12 million? Is it $15 million? Do you want to be the first $20 million coach? Do you want a piece of the franchise? Do you want total control? Then Nick Saban, like any reasonable human being, would say, okay, well, let's at least have a cup of coffee and talk about this.
There is no doubt that Nick Saban could dictate the market. Should an NFL job come open and an NFL owner throw the world at Nick Saban, he could say, I want the world and the moon. There is no doubt about that. But should he want that? Why do we keep putting this on Nick Saban? Every morning I wake up and I watch, I promise you, almost every sports show that exists. I watch and listen on the radio, on television, to ESPN shows on other networks, and I hear what almost everyone has to say. And let me tell you something. This argument that there's a mountain to climb for Nick Saban, that he's been dominating a molehill in college football, and the NFL is the mountain that he must climb to show why the first time he fell down wasn't really about him, that he could conquer that mountain yet, that is absurd. There's nothing Nick Saban needs to prove in the NFL to redeem his legacy. His legacy is intact. Now, this idea of like you're going to win the debate over who is the greatest coach of all time. Let's work through this, okay? Let's knock these dominoes down one at a time. Domino number one. You don't win the debate over who's the greatest football coach of all time. You don't win that debate. You're just ahead when everybody else gets exhausted. And right now, Nick Saban gets to say, I have 6 national championships. The only name close to mine, the only name tied with mine, is the great Bear Bryant. We can have, in fact, we will have a debate about who is the greatest football coach of all time, Bill Belichick or Nick Saban. But the truth of the matter is, it's an ultimately unsolvable debate, like every sports debate is. In fact, that's what's great about so many of these sports debates. You and your buddy at the corner of a bar arguing an unsolvable proposition. If you didn't like that idea, go join chemistry class. Go sit in on a science class at Rutgers, where at the end you can say, you know what, it turns out Philip was wrong. His whole thing over, quantum physics didn't quite pan out. That's not what we like. In the end, we like messy, we like gray, we like Seinfeld, we like unsolvable, unending debates. because it's fun. And Nick Saban can't win that debate, to be honest. He can only keep arguing after the other guy gets exhausted. And 6 national titles, tied with the great Bear Bryant. The other guy's going to get pretty tired by the time you get done listing those off. And yet, and this is fascinating, and kudos to Colin Cowherd for getting this. This is Bruce Arians, the Arizona Cardinals' recently retired head coach, saying he thinks Nick wants to conquer that mountain.
It would not surprise me. You know, and there's a job he covets. It just happens to be open. And but he's got a dynasty right now, another dynamite recruiting class. Why he would do it, I don't know, but it would not shock me if he did.
What job?
The Giants.
Why the New York Giants?
Because they're the New York Giants, and you know, when we grew up, they were the thing.
Why he would do it, I don't know either, Bruce. Again, kudos to Colin Cowherd for getting that from Bruce Arians. Domino number 1, he doesn't need it to win the debate over who's the greatest college football coach or the greatest football coach of all time. Domino number 2, it's a different job. NFL coach and college football coach are completely different, not just jobs, lifestyles. Nick Saban is the king of a statewide, region-wide kingdom in Alabama. There is no NFL job. Side note, by the way, why are the Giants the job? What was Bruce Arians talking about? What is the special, glittery, historical significance of the Giants? I mean, maybe I'm being a Cowboys homer, but what age did Bruce Arians grow up in where the Giants were the job to have? What is that?
In the same way that like players who grew up watching the 90s Cowboys want to play for the Cowboys, isn't it the same thing? He grew up watching the Giants.
What decade are we talking about? The 40s?
Yeah, I mean,
I'm serious.
His dad was probably a Giants fan. That's why he wants to do it.
I mean, if Bruce Arians a kid of the 70s, it would be the Steelers. If it's a kid of the 80s, it would be the 90s, not the Niners. If it's a kid of the 90s, it's the Cowboys. If it's the 2000s, it's the Patriots. How far? It's the 60s, it's the Packers. So what is it, the 50s? What is this, the Giants' golden era that made it the job that everybody wants? That's just a quick side note. But Nick Saban is the king of a regional kingdom in Alabama. Coach of the New York Giants, you're not the king. You're a CEO with shareholders who are billionaires, who are in your business all the time, with last names like Mara and Tisch. That's not a life you want where you're trying to boss around grown men like Odell Beckham, who proposes to a kicking net. You're trying to convince Eli Apple to stay off of Twitter. In Alabama, he can do whatever he wants. Yeah, he might have some big donors, but Nick Saban, at this point in the game, he's the one running that kingdom. There's nobody that can check that king's power. Domino number 3, it's way harder to get the train running from a cold start than when it's going well down the track. The Alabama dynasty is full speed ahead on the train track. It's much easier to keep that thing between the lines than it is to get one up and running from a cold start like you would have to do in New York. Hard job, different job, never win the debate, and perhaps most importantly of all, get to this domino straight ahead. I'm not sure he could do a good job at it anyway. Although I think it's unnecessary for his legacy, I'm not convinced Nick Saban is the answer to the New York Giants' prayers. Straight Talk Wireless, nationwide coverage on America's largest, most dependable 4G LTE networks. You can jump on. You can jump on the phone with me. 888-SAY-ESPN, that's 888-729-3776. Does Nick Saban need the NFL for his legacy? It's the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. What's up, everyone? Will Cain here. Support for the Will Cain podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Chances are you're confident when it comes to your work, your hobbies, and your life. Rocket Mortgage gives you that same level of confidence when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. With Rocket Mortgage, you can apply simply and understand fully so you can mortgage confidently. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/will. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states. NMLS, consumeraccess.org, number 3030. Had it with the whole Nick Saban needs to conquer the mountain of the NFL. No, he doesn't. For what? To win an unending sports debate? To win the unwinnable? Get out of here with that stuff. Nick Saban doesn't need the NFL. The NFL might need Nick Saban. He doesn't need the NFL. I knocked down 3 dominoes. I got a 4th I want to knock down with you. First of all, Nick Saban doesn't need it to win a debate. He doesn't need it to win a debate about the greatest football coach of all time. Number 2, it's a different job. It's a different world. His life is not comparable to the life of an NFL coach. His job, his responsibilities, his authority, not comparable to that of an NFL coach. Why go do that? Number 3, it's harder to get something up and running from a cold start than it is to keep a finely oiled machine going with the pace it's already going. Number 4, though, this is the one I wanted to get to. Here's the thing. I'm not even sure that Nick Saban would knock it out of the park as an NFL coach, and it has nothing to do with his experience as a Dolphins coach. Nothing. Here's the God's honest truth. Nick Saban is 66. He's 66. Now, do you guys know who Gary Vaynerchuk is? I'm a big Gary V fan. Gary is like a huge social media guru, business help, motivational help. He has an ad agency in New York City. Check him out, Gary V on Twitter. I interviewed Gary once, and Gary's a big, it's never too late guy. It's never too late to start your dream. It's never too late to start the business you always wanted to start. It's never too late to be an entrepreneur. And I buy that. I do. On a personal level, I buy that. You're 42, you hate your job, you've always had this burning desire to create your own record label, whatever it may be. Man, go do it. Be smart. You want to be a big baller? Make it happen. Don't be a small baller. You want to do it at age 56? Who am I to tell you no? You go do it. But at a macro level, I do know this. The motivation at 66 is not the same as 32. The grind at 66 is not the same as 32. Nick Saban's wake-up call in New York at the age of 67 isn't the same as the time of Sean McVay's alarm clock in Los Angeles. The odds of that being true, he's just grinding it out at 67 the same as a 32-year-old, low. And I've seen the data. I've seen the charts. You ever seen what a happiness chart looks like? How happy people are in their life? It looks like this. You're super happy in your 20s, like satisfied with your life, rocking and rolling. It's full of hope. The world is your oyster. You'll make of it whatever you want. Starts to dip down in your 30s. Your 40s, it goes lower. As reality sets in and you're like, maybe this isn't everything I thought it was going to be. Maybe I'm not going to be a rap star. At age 50-something, you're at your bottom. You bottom out on happiness. That's the most depressed about your life that you are, early 50s. But then something interesting happens. It starts to climb back up. And it goes higher and higher and higher, and it surpasses your 30s, and it surpasses your 20s. And before you know it, you're at the happiest you've ever been in your life at the age of 70. 70. Happiest you've ever been. Now, why is that? Fewer expectations. Embracing what life has become. Happy with who you are. Willing to sit back and go, you know what? This is all right. Life is good. Nick Saban is approaching that content stage of life. And you're telling me you're going to throw the challenge of the New York Giants on him and expect him to come out grinding like Sean McVay? Let Nick Saban be Nick Saban, the greatest college football coach of all time, and in the debate for the greatest coach of all time. Sups, Rudy?
You're talking about average human beings. Nick Saban's not an average human being. You think he's not going to be motivated by his failures with the Dolphins and want to succeed even more?
I'm just telling you what it is, man. I'm telling you the macro. You can tell me the micro is the exception, and maybe you're right. Maybe Nick wakes up at 72 and he's still mad at it. And he's still mad at all of it.
I will give you this. Didn't Nick Saban say it was the happiest moment of his life after he won the championship?
He did. He said after Tua threw that touchdown, the happiest day of his life. Happiest moment of his life.
Maybe you're right.
Oh, I see somebody just walked in, and he's going to be I'm nervous all of a sudden. Just got nervous in my program because I just talked about the contentment of people approaching their 60s and 70s, and Hall of Famer Bill Polian is about to walk in. I'm literally nervous. David in Chicago watching on ESPN News. What's up, David?
Yeah, just looking at Nick Saban trying to make that transition from the NFL to college. I don't see the logic behind it. Now, taking into account the Giants, it's very appealing, the brand, the market, but I mean, his personality, his coaching style, I don't think that will translate really well to the NFL. He's someone who needs full control, authority, autonomy, and I firmly believe the formula for winning in the NFL and in college is just super. It's just marginally different.
I totally agree. You're dealing with human beings at different stages in their life. One, you're dealing with men getting paid millions of dollars who think they know best about everything in their life. And another, you still have a chance to develop and mold young men. You get a chance to honestly be way more bossy. You get a chance to tell people what to do. Bill Polian just walked in, by the way. I mean, I think it's perfect. Right off my point, Bill, this is what I just said, okay? First of all, I'm making the argument. Nick Saban doesn't need the NFL. His legacy is fine and intact. He doesn't need any redemption in the NFL, regardless of his Dolphins experience. But I just want to say this, and this is, how old are you, Bill?
75.
75. Okay. All right, we'll see how this goes. I just said, I've seen the charts. I've seen when human beings are happiest in life, when they are content, when they feel like they can accept the way their life is. Challenges perhaps are less appealing. It peaks in the early 70s. 71-year-olds are happier than 25-year-olds. On average, on the macro. Do we really expect Nick Saban at 66 to attack that challenge the same way Sean McVay would?
Yes. That's the way he's constructed.
And it never changes?
It never changes. It will only change when he walks away. And when he makes that decision, he'll make that decision, and I don't think he'll ever look back. I think he'll still be involved in some way or another, perhaps in radio and television, because he is a marvelous teacher, and he'll do a great job in that if he does it. But as long as he's coaching and feels he can still bring that fire to it, and that fire still burns, he will be as good as he ever was.
Where's your fire? I mean, honestly, you've gone through this. You've experienced this. Are you still mad at it the same way you were?
Not mad at it, but I miss it. Herm said it best. He misses the grass. I miss the challenge. Comes draft time, I miss being in there running a draft. I miss there making the decisions that help build a team. I miss being part of a building process. Now, can I step back and say, at my age, I can't go out and scout 3 nights a week and watch the Thursday night game and the Friday night game and the Saturday night game, be back at practice every day, and then go through the game on Sunday emotionally? No. The energy level is not at 75 is not what it was at 55.
All right, well, let's put that energy level to a test. Let's take a quick break. You're going to get to I know you want to give me like some quiz on what is and what is not a catch. I don't know if you need visual aids.
No,
on that.
Actually, I'm going to give you a lesson on it, but that's okay.
Oh, going to give me a lesson. Okay, all right. So there is some fire there. It's the Will Cain Show. Bill Polian, a little more. Hey, has John Gruden's layoff been too long? We'll put that to Bill Polian as well. It's the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and ESPN, the app.
Help protect what matters with the ADT Safer, Smarter New Year's sales event. For a limited time, get an ADT Security Starter Kit. Everything you need to get started with ADT Pulse, including a security panel, keypad, a motion sensor, and 2 entry sensors. Plus, there's an indoor camera and key fob, all professionally installed for only $49. It's a $599 savings that comes with the warm, confident feeling of safety at home. Requires 36-month monitoring contract, QSP, and Easy Pay. Activation and early termination fees may apply. Certain markets excluded. Licenses available at ADT.com. Florida EF 0001121. Louisiana F1639. Visit ADT.com/podcast. Hurry. This special offer now ends 1/21.
Hall of Famer Bill Polian just wandered into our studio to teach me a lesson. The Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Home Insurance. Getting a quote is easier than ever. I just said this. That's what I like. I like to say what I just said and let you shoot it down, okay? I've had Nobel Prize-winning economists, U.S. senators, presidential candidates. All of these tell me how I'm wrong. Why stop with Hall of Fame football executives? The end of the bar debate about who's the greatest football coach of all time is really, in the end, unsolvable. That's why it's a great debate for most of us. But it may not be for you. And in fact, if you walk into the bar, most of us don't want you to be there because you end the debate. But in your estimation, could you put your finger on who is the greatest football coach of all time?
I always, with respect to the greatest players, coaches, etc., I always give a weasel answer, but it's what I feel in my heart. Because every generation, I think, is different. Every generation presents different problems. The leagues evolve. So, for example, General Pershing had one set of circumstances to deal with in World War I. Dwight D. Eisenhower and Douglas MacArthur had another set of circumstances to deal with in World War II. So, how do you say which one is the greatest of all time? George Washington had other issues to deal with in the Revolutionary War. General Grant had completely different issues to deal with in the Civil War. So what I do is take a look at the continuum that I know of football and say to you that I would put there's only 4 places on Mount Rushmore, so I'm maybe going to get to more than 4, but I would put Lombardi, Bill Walsh, Don Shula, Chuck Noll, Belichick.
Let me ask you this, because I want to narrow in how you got to those names. And your analogy of Pershing to Eisenhower to Grant is perfect. So maybe this standard doesn't stand the test of time. I always liked what Bum Phillips said about what is a great coach. He could win with yours, and then he could swap sides and win with his. Or he could win with his and swap sides and win with yours. Didn't matter what the players were, he could win, essentially, in talking about what went into being a great coach. But as you point out, now it's more than that. It's how do you manage egos? How do you manage a roster? Maybe you're also making front office moves. What is your standard at how you got to those 5 names?
Well, for one thing, they were overarching winners. In their periods of time. Shula's the winningest coach of all time. Chuck Noll won 4 Super Bowls and created, in my mind, the greatest single team of all time. Lombardi was the ultimate winner. He's the guy that the coaching face of modern professional football. I didn't include Paul Brown, by the way, which is he's a hard one to leave out, but you have to bring Belichick in. So, Paul Brown had some time in the All-American Football Conference prior to a merger with the NFL. So I'm doing him a disservice, but nonetheless, you got to make room for Belichick. Shula,
Walsh.
Walsh invented a brand new offense.
Right.
Brand new offense. Brand new way of offensive football, brand new system of offensive football, and everything that has come about since in throwing the ball is a direct offshoot of the West Coast offense. And Belichick, because he is by far, excuse me, in the modern era, the best strategic and situational coach in the game, period.
Does it do anything for you, talking to Hall of Famer Bill Polian here on the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio, we're talking about this largely because of the accomplishments of Nick Saban this week and the role of Bill Belichick and what's going on in New England. Does it do anything for you when you analyze this to take a guy like Jimmy Johnson and who did it at 2 different levels, multiple times? Did it at college football, did it in the pros. Does that tell you anything about how great a coach someone is?
Well, it tells you he's a great coach. There's no question about that. I don't think it has any bearing on Nick Saban's situation. Nick Saban is up there with Bear Bryant and Rockney and, whomever else you want to put in that pantheon, Bud Wilkinson perhaps, as one of the greatest coach of all time at the college level. And that because he didn't set records at both levels in his brief time with the Dolphins is immaterial in my mind.
If you were running the Oakland Raiders, how concerned would you be about John Gruden's 9-year layoff from coaching?
I wouldn't be concerned about it at all because he stayed in contact with the game. He's watched tape. He's worked kids out with the quarterback camp and all of that kind of thing. He will have an adjustment. The biggest adjustment is going to be, biggest adjustments, plural, will be the I generation. They're always on the devices. And you have to, and they have very short attention spans. In the 7 years I've been out, that's changed dramatically. When I speak to college teams, I mean, I have to even before I left the Colts, when I talked about Yogi Berra, I had to explain who he was. They don't have any frame of reference or historical knowledge or anything like that.
Apparently, you have to explain to millennials who John Gruden was.
That's probably
He's
right.
only known as Monday Night Football commentator.
Yeah, that's probably right. So there is that. There's a generational gap that he's going to have to get across, and a communication gap that he's going to have to master. He will, no question about it, but it is an issue. And then the practice and training rules, off-season training rules, are so vastly different. So vastly different compared to what used to be.
Is somebody important we should talk to?
It actually is, but I can return it. It's so vastly different from what it used to be that he's going to have to figure out a way to make his program work within the context of very, very circumscribed rules.
I'm not looking at my phone because I'm distracted like some young person you just described. I'm looking at this because I wanted to read you this. I only got like a minute left here, but I saw this tweet from Matt Miller, who's a NFL scout, and he said the Cleveland Browns just hired, I believe, a front office guy from the Green Bay Packers. Mm-hmm. His name's escaping me right now. And this combined with John Dorsey's hire, he said the Cleveland Browns, by the way, are now a top 3 front office in the NFL. The Cleveland Browns, the Indianapolis Colts, and the Seattle Seahawks. What would you say to that?
I'm not sure I'd go that far because I don't think John has made the kinds of hires yet throughout the organization that he needs to make. It's not just the 2 people at the top. There's a lot of others involved. So John's taken great strides, and he was the right hire, and I applaud them for doing that. But there's still a lot of work to be done there. That's a train wreck that isn't going to get fixed overnight.
Okay. All right. That's Hall of Famer Bill Polian in studio giving us the Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts. Thanks for walking right in.
My pleasure.
Always walk right in. All right. Coming up, listen, everyone is mad at ESPN for covering LaVar Ball. Everyone. I should have asked Bill Polian about this. But you're mad at us for covering? Absolutely. You want to stay for a second? Sure. Sit back down. All right. Bill Polian's mad at ESPN for covering LaVar Ball. I got some things to say about it. It's the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. I said before the break that I want to talk about LaVar Ball. Look, it's been all over the place. The ESPN is at the center of the storm. It's actually the bullseye on the dartboard that everyone is throwing darts at, from Stan Van Gundy to Rick Carlisle, coach of my favorite team in the NBA, to Steve Kerr, coach of the world champion Golden State Warriors. Everybody's saying ESPN is making the mistake. It's ESPN that's at fault. It's ESPN that is despicable in this scenario for covering LaVar Ball. And I have a lot to say on it. But as Bill was walking out, I said, you probably have an opinion on this. So here I have a Hall of Fame executive, granted in a different sport, but Bill Polian. Is ESPN making a mistake, Bill, by covering LaVar Ball?
No, my answer is going to be nuanced.
Okay.
They're not. Life is nuanced too. I mean, we need to understand that. And when I was working at a club, my answer would not have been nuanced. But
what do you mean by that?
Well, I would have said no, don't cover him.
Right.
He's not a story. But when you step away from it, you realize that there's a wider world. And I've learned a lot working here at ESPN. I'm not being a homer when I say that. I just have. So
here they are again.
There it is again.
Is it a trade?
No. So the bottom line for me is this. He does make news. And so as a news organization, you have to cover him. But it is also true. Everything that Steve Kerr said is true. He has no standing. He's not a coach. He's not a player. He's simply a father. Every NBA player has one. So he's not unique in that area. And he has no track record of success at any level of the professional basketball industry. So who cares what he thinks or says? Well, if he says something outrageous, ESPN has to cover it. But I also think anybody who covers him should also have the disclaimer in there. Listen, you are here because you're, quote, a celebrity, not because you have any standing in this business. Having said that, why did you make this statement? If I were interviewing him, that's what I would say.
What I would say, he's a fraud. And I'm going to say it.
Well, I'm probably a little more polite.
Well, he's a fraud. I mean, the Better Business Bureau has proven it in the last couple of days. What has he got, a triple F rating on the Big Baller brand? I think the technical definition of fraud is, I tweeted it out just a minute ago. Here we go. Fraud, a person or thing intended to deceive others, typically by unjustifiable claims and being credited with accomplishments or qualities. They're selling shoes that you don't buy. They don't take returns. They call you a small baller, Bubba, if you call in, right? And that's the definition of a fraud. Bubba wants to know, was that LaVar Ball on the phone?
No, it was not LaVar Ball.
Oh.
I do think, and I'll get out of here on this note, I do think we have a responsibility, particularly to the young people who watch us, as Steve Kerr alluded to in his remarks, to be honest about what he is and not create something that really is not factual, actual, real.
That's exactly what I'm going to try to do, Bill. Thanks for dropping in.
Thank you.
Thanks for jumping in. I want to be honest about who he is. See, the thing is, I told my producers this before the show. I said, a lot of the people that agree with me out there would say this: to hell with LaVar Ball, don't cover him. And my response is, to hell with LaVar Ball, cover him. See, I believe sunlight is the ultimate disinfectant. LaVar Ball is a fraud. LaVar Ball is a carnival-barking snake oil salesman. I said it on First Take today. It wasn't popular. It wasn't something that was applauded on my way out the door. It wasn't applauded on social media. But it's the truth. To what Bill Polian just said, I need to give the honest truth. LaVar Ball makes unsubstantiated false claims, both as a hype man for his son, for a hype man for his own athletic career, and a hype man for a brand that has a triple F rating from the Better Business Bureau. There's people out there buying stuff or receiving stuff that they're not buying. It's all a fraud. But to me, that doesn't mean we should stop talking about LaVar Ball. No. We need to talk about him more. And I see your tweets. I see the social media. I hear you saying don't talk about him. But hear me out on this, okay? Hear me out on this. I said this on the show on Monday. First of all, let's talk about what the media is. The media is a mirror. That's largely what it is. Maybe it can be a funhouse mirror. Maybe it can distort at times. Maybe it makes you look fat when you feel like you should be skinny. But it really is a mirror. And to blame the media is like blaming McDonald's when you look in the mirror and you see fat. You're blaming the restaurant that sold you what you wanted to eat. See, here's why. Because media, to a large extent, outside of PBS and NPR, outside of that stuff, it's profit-driven organizations. It survives on revenue and profit. What largely drives revenue? Ratings. Why do ratings matter? Because you sell advertising against ratings. I'm here to tell you, you can put it to all the Twitter polls you want. I've seen the data. I've seen the ESPN.com articles. I've seen the radio ratings. I've seen the quarter hours on First Take. I've seen everything. LaVar Ball topics rate. Now listen, Cerruti, you said this to me the other day. Can't we be better than that? Right?
Yeah, I don't understand why can't we be leaders in this? Why can't we say, hey, this guy's dumb. Let's do the public a favor and not make them dumber.
I think it's a fair point. But he's not the Kardashians. He's not the Kardashians in success level. They're actually very wealthy off doing nothing and being frivolous and entertaining. He's not that. He hasn't achieved that level of wealth, contributing to the fraudulence of it all.
He's trying.
But he's more newsworthy than they are. He's more newsworthy. See, we're not just doing this because it gets ratings. I do believe he is newsworthy. He's the father of the number 2 pick in the NBA draft. He's the father of the franchise cornerstone of the Los Angeles Lakers. And he's made himself a news story and injected himself between Lonzo Ball and Luke Walton, the Los Angeles Lakers coach. He's injected himself between Lonzo Ball and Magic Johnson, the president of the Los Angeles Lakers. He's injected himself in between Lonzo Ball and the entire franchise, the Los Angeles Lakers. That's newsworthy. And if you say, as Bill Polian just did, he's just a father like everyone else that has a father in the NBA, no, because not every other person's father makes themselves an NBA story. But in the end, you got to tell the truth. He's a fraud. And I'm so mad at these coaches. I got to get into that. The Will Cain Show.
This is the Will Cain Podcast on ESPN Radio.
Sunlight is the best disinfectant. It's not to hell with LaVar Ball. Stop covering him. It should be to hell with LaVar Ball. Cover him until he's disinfected. It's the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app presented by Progressive Insurance. Is ESPN doing a disservice by giving LaVar Ball so much attention? 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. Give me a call on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Or you can hop on the WinterFlowers.com Twitter feed at Will Cain Show. This morning on First Take, Molly Karam read a poll result that First Take asked its viewers. Should ESPN stop covering LaVar Ball? I want you to hear me. All right, it might be the most lopsided. Okay, 82%. 82% said yes. You're covering LaVar Ball too much. However, it was also record voting on any poll ever put up in the history of First Take. A record number of people chose to engage with that poll, and 82% of them said yes. Now, maybe you read that and you go, that's an emphatic yes. Or maybe you read that and you see that it reveals everything you feel about LaVar Ball. You may hate LaVar Ball, but you hate watch LaVar Ball. And that ain't the first time you've done something like that.
And what's crazy is I think people think we get pumped to talk about LaVar Ball topics. Like, I don't come in today going, yes, LaVar said that he's better than Jordan again. New lead for the show today. No one says that. No one's pumped to talk about LaVar Ball here. But we do it because you are interested in it. The fan is clearly interested in it. So the fact that 82% of people said that we should stop talking about LaVar Ball, they're just embarrassed to admit, or their peers who aren't voting, they're embarrassed to admit that they are interested in LaVar Ball. Because there is obviously a faction of people out there that want to hear what this guy has to say.
It's a fact. People say to me all the time on social media, what are you talking about? Me and my friends, the Water Cooler, we all talk about how much we hate LaVar Ball. As though that's not self-defeating in and of itself. Let me get this straight. You and your friends talk about how much you don't like hearing about LaVar Ball? You get that, right? You get how self-defeating that is? You get how contradictory that is? You and your friends talk about not wanting to talk about LaVar Ball. And this isn't the first time. Jersey Shore, the Kardashians. The truth of the matter is, if you put a poll up on First Take and you said, do you like Will Cain? I will bet you it is overwhelmingly, hell no, get him off. I've also seen the ratings. You may hate, but you watch. It's just how it goes sometimes, guys. It's just how it goes. But
Humble yourself!
What, Bubba?
Humble yourself!
I just hung 48, though, on Georgia.
Humble yourself!
I don't think I should have to after putting 48 on a big SEC defense.
Yeah, we all saw the ratings. You're great.
I'll tell you who's not great. I'm choking on the hypocrisy here. Everybody says they love Stan Van Gundy. I love Rick Carlisle. I'm a Dallas Mavericks fan. I'm a huge Dallas Mavericks fan. I think Rick Carlisle is an incredibly underrated coach in the NBA. He's a top threer. He's a top 3 coach in the NBA. No doubt about it. I don't care what the Dallas Mavericks are. By the way, I want to institute, Jeff Van Gundy and I might not be friends at the end of this segment, but he said this the other night, so we need to institute the Jeff Van Gundy Award for sub-500 coach in the NBA. The best coach coaching a sub-500 team in the NBA, right? Rick Carlisle's got to be in the running for that. But his brother, Jeff Van Gundy's brother, Stan Van Gundy, said this about ESPN and LaVar Ball.
I just thought it was a cheap shot, and I thought ESPN showed total disrespect. I don't have a problem with LaVar Ball. I don't. He's a grown man. He can voice whatever opinion he wants. I got a problem with ESPN deciding that that's a story.
What is... What? What? You don't have a problem with LaVar Ball. You have a problem with ESPN. You don't have a problem with the message. You have a problem with the messenger. That's nuts, Stan. That's nuts. And also the hypocrisy of Stan Van Gundy. And by the way, Steve Kerr also said something. Head coach of the world champions, Golden State Warriors, said something. Rick Carlisle, by the way, you know he started this entire conversation and he was asked about it again.
Are you suggesting that ESPN should...
You got my quote.
Determine what news to run based on what coaches will like?
No, I'm saying that they should look at their sources and do a better job of determining whether they have any merit or any validity, or are they just blowhard loudmouths? That's what I'm saying. You got that?
But he is a blowhard, loudmouth Rick, who's also the father of Lonzo Ball, so he's a pretty good source on what's going on with the franchise cornerstone of the Los Angeles Lakers. His mouth is a pretty good source, or it becomes the issue and thus is part of the news about what's going on with the Los Angeles Lakers. I love Rick Carlisle. I love a lot of people. I'm not going to back down and tell them that when they're wrong. I'm going to tell Rick Carlisle he's wrong. I'm going to tell Stan Van Gundy is wrong. And when it comes to Van Gundy and Kerr, the hypocrisy sticks in your throat and looks like a cartoon sticking out sideways from your neck. It's ridiculous. This is Stan Van Gundy, who uses multiple occasions to tell us what he thinks of President Trump. This is Stan Van Gundy, who thinks his personal politics comes with being head coach of the Detroit Pistons. This is Stan Van Gundy, who thinks a microphone means license to give you his political perspective. This is Steve Kerr, who, although is an amazing coach, thinks that should come along with the idea that he gets to tell you what he thinks about gun control. Are you kidding me? And now you're using your platform in ways never intended, that no one in the audience asked for. No one asked for that. Nobody asked, hey, Steve, except for the reporter in the room, what do you think about gun control? Nobody really cares. Bill Polian talked about standing. Stan Van Gundy doesn't really have any standing to give us his political opinion on Donald Trump. So how is Stan Van Gundy not the LaVar Ball of politics? If LaVar Ball isn't newsworthy, is a bad source, has no standing to be giving these opinions, why do you have a standing and are a valuable voice to be hearing on politics? Why? Why can you apply a standard one way but not another? That hypocrisy is just so thick. And by the way, I watched the Golden Globes on Sunday night. Can we just, all right, we get it. Everybody's virtuous. Everybody's super, super moral. We get it. All right? Your outfit proved it. You're super virtuous. We heard your award speech in case the outfit didn't prove it to us. So, an industry that if they didn't create it, they led an issue, meaning helped create the sexual harassment problem going on in society, then has the self-righteousness to turn around and tell us all how to conduct our lives and how perfect they are. Anyway, that's a sidetrack. But just enough with the preening. LaVar Ball is a fraud. He's a carnival-barking snake oil salesman, and the way to handle that isn't to silence it, it's to shine sunlight on it. Kenny in Tennessee. What's up, Kenny?
Hey, you guys are getting a bad rap about covering him. You know, I like what you just said about Van Gundy, because he said LaVar Ball can speak his mind, but you guys shouldn't cover him. Well, why should he be able to say what he say, but you guys can't do what y'all supposed to do? Y'all supposed to cover newsworthy people.
I agree. And I just want to say this one more thing about, Bill Polian said he's not toting the company line. I'm not toting the company line here. I mean, I was the guy on First Take that told you that turning a fantasy football auction into a slave auction is not something that ESPN is open to criticism on. Fantasy football auctions are held across this country every year. I'm the guy who said ESPN shouldn't have reassigned Robert Lee because it somehow looked bad. I'm the guy who has stopped other people and criticized other people for being too political at times. I haven't toted any ESPN company line since I got here. I'm telling you ESPN isn't wrong here because I believe ESPN isn't wrong here. It's the Will Cain Show, reminding you can watch all 3 hours of the show on ESPN News. All right, coming up, a guy who's been around Saban. He may have the best access to Saban, at least anybody in the national media. Marty Smith tells us if he thinks Saban will ever look at a move back to the NFL. Let's see what he thinks about our LaVar Ball coverage as well. He's a reporter. He's on the ground. It's the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. Hi, everyone. Will Cain here. Support for the Will Cain podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Chances are you're confident when it comes to your work, your hobbies, and your life. Rocket Mortgage gives you that same level of confidence when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. Rocket Mortgage is simple, allowing you to fully understand all the details and be confident you're getting the right mortgage for you. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/will. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLS consumeraccess.org number 3030. Cooper in Florida, you're on the Will Cain Show. What's up, man?
Yeah, I grew up in a little town in West Hempstead, a town called Lakeview. And years ago, we had guys that were already in the pros I'm going to give you some names. Dennis DeVal, Dr. J, Ollie Taylor, Jeffrey Halliburton, Larry Keenan, Al Skinner, Charlie Scott used to come out, Fred Williamson for the Nets, Nate Archibald. And there was a lot of guys, like every Thursday night, it was like pickup games on a little small court, little town called Lakeview in West Hempstead. And there were so many guys that come out, but we had one guy. I mean, he could have been all world. His father reminded me of Ball. When his father didn't show up, this kid was a superstar. But every time his father used to come, he used to brag, yell to the court, and the guy used to get so nervous. I'm going to be honest with you, he ended up getting on drugs. I'm talking about a waste of talent. And I'm going to be honest with you. I'm telling you the truth. What I'm seeing about this Ball father, he need to step back and let his son do his thing. It's no problem. You know, he did his job taking care of his kids. That's good. That's good. But let his kids shine. What he's doing, he's trying to shine through his kids.
No doubt.
And anybody who call in and say, Mr. Ball is right, they're an idiot. Mr. Ball is wrong. Let your boy do his thing.
That's a good call, Cooper. Appreciate the call. And he's exactly right. Cooper's exactly right. I'm not saying what's going to happen to the Ball boys isn't, they're going to end up, on drugs. There's going to be some horrible outcome for them. But he is funny. One of the things people always say to me is, LaVar Ball is harmless. It's just harmless. Look, he's been a good dad to him. Man, this is not harmless. Right now, Lonzo is suffering for LaVar's behavior. Right now. He has to manage his relationship with his coach, with his organization, with his manager. But back to the question. Are we doing something wrong? Well, let's ask a reporter. Let's ask ESPN reporter Marty Smith on Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Pennzoil Synthetics, taking synthetic motor oil performance to a whole new level. Make the switch to Pennzoil Synthetics today. Marty, should we stop covering LaVar Ball like we are?
Good afternoon first, Will.
Yes, sir.
Thanks for having your own show, dude. That's cool.
Thank you.
I don't know that, I kind of look at it two-sided, to be honest with you. As a consumer, I'm captivated by it. I can't help it. I wish I wasn't. And as a dad, I wish that he would celebrate the tremendous talent that his kids have, which is obvious to anybody who has seen them on the internet or on TV or whatever. But, grandstanding and using their ability to disparage what Luke Walton does or whatnot is excessive. And it's really, in my opinion, it's unfair to Lonzo.
Absolutely.
Forget LiAngelo and LaMelo. I got their names right?
You did?
I think I got that right.
Yeah.
Forget those two. Now they pulled them out of school and they're going to a foreign country to play ball. Is that their decision or is that his decision? From what I know, and I'm probably maybe a bit ignorant compared to most, I've been in a college football hole. It seems as if it's really his decision that they did that. And that's not letting them with that tremendous talent kind of live their own lives. And so should we stop covering him? All I can tell you is that's above my pay grade, but I certainly pay attention.
I don't know of anybody who, well, at least that I know, and I know you, so I don't know of anybody that I know who spent more time with Nick Saban than you have. You've been on the boat with him. I've seen the whole thing. Does Nick Saban have any desire to get back to the NFL?
I kind of look at it like this. I look at it from a business perspective. I know that I don't know. My inference in being around him is that there's a sort of a sense of maybe unfinished business there. But look at the dynamics. Look at the differences between college football and what he's able to accrue in the NFL. In the NFL, there are salary concerns, right? So no matter how hard you work to try to build the roster you want, you're still limited by certain variables that are out of your control. In college football, he can go out and get 30 five-star players if he so desires, and if they're willing to sign with him. And Alabama is an NFL factory. Well, if you go back and look at the players they've sent to the NFL just since 2014, it's jaw-dropping. And when you can go into young men's homes and speak with their parents, and he's an awesome person. Like, I know that it looks like he's this gruff, you know, I will say hard ass. I'm probably not supposed to say it that way, but
let it fly.
He's and he can be that. It's a tough love dad. But every single player that comes back to be immersed in the program is there for a reason, and that's their respect for him. It's their pride of being a member of that having been a member of that program, and their appreciation for him as a human being. So that tells me all I need to know.
Marty, and let me ask you this.
I don't know about the league, dude. I mean,
listen,
if I'm him, I wouldn't.
What you just said frustrates me so much because I'm a Longhorn fan. And here's the deal. You're absolutely right. The guys he puts into the NFL, it's just unprecedented. There's a stat out. I know you've seen it, Marty. Every person who's been recruited by Nick Saban since 1999 has won a national championship. Recruited and committed to Nick Saban since 1999 has won a national championship. That's stupid.
You just look at this junior class, Will. The junior class that is, you know, your Calvin Ridleys and that group, they've been in college for 3 years. They played in a national championship game every year and won 2 of them.
Well, so here's the thing, man. You talked about, yes, he has good recruiting classes. It's more often than not number one. This year it's not. It's down to 5 right now. But, you know, the gap in recruiting isn't huge. I mean, Georgia gets great classes lately. Texas gets great classes. You know, everybody gets a great class. So what's the difference? Is it just development? Why is it that he is different, his programs are different?
I think there's a couple of coaches that have created program isn't a strong enough word. I mean, it's juggernaut. I mean, he's there. What Dabo Swinney's done in Clemson is there. Urban Meyer's doing it despite the fact that the Buckeyes did not make the playoff this year. But it is getting great players. I mean, really, that's what
you think
it's
about. Recruiting. It's mainly recruiting.
I do. You can't look, man. You can be the greatest. You can be Newt Rockne, bro. If you don't have great players, and not just great players, you said a word there that is absolutely vital in this conversation. And that's development.
Right. That's it.
It's the ability to take 2- and 3-star young men and see something in them, whether that's passion, talent, smarts, whatever that is. Look at Hunter Renfrow. Just take him on Dabo's bunch. He was a walk-on, man. But there was something they saw, and now he's not a walk-on anymore. It's the ability to take every individual person, envelop them in a culture, and find the greatest version of them. And each of those 3 men I mentioned, Urban, Nick, and Dabo, they have different methodologies to get there, but they all manage to do it. And that's why they're the elite every single season.
Yeah, honestly, I think it is the development. I think a lot of people get big classes. It's the development. I got to run, Marty. You're welcome to come on anytime you'd like, man.
Appreciate you, brother. Y'all have a great one. Thanks for having me.
Take care, man. All right, coming up, tell me if you want to see Saban go to the NFL. Better yet, 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. I want to ask you this. This is what I want to know. Would you pay 3 first-round draft picks for Bill Belichick? Would you pay that? I sure as hell would, and I'd do it fast. It's the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
Help protect what matters with the ADT Safer, Smarter New Year's sales event. For a limited time, get an ADT Security Starter Kit. Everything you need to get started with ADT Pulse, including a security panel, keypad, a motion sensor, and 2 entry sensors. Plus, there's an indoor camera and key fob, all professionally installed for only $49. It's a $599 savings that comes with the warm, confident feeling of safety at home. Requires 36-month monitoring contract, QSP, and Easy Pay. Activation and early termination fees may apply. Certain markets excluded. Licenses available at ADT.com. Florida EF0001121. Louisiana F1639. Visit ADT.com/podcast. Hurry. This special offer now ends 1/21.
3 first-round picks for Bill Belichick? Hefty price? Nope. Fire sale. Buy. I'll take 2. I'll take 3. I'll take all the Bill Belichicks you'll sell me for 3 first-round draft picks. If it must be only 1, then 1 it will be. Gary Myers, writing in the New York Daily News, quoting an unnamed NFL executive, said this: "You think Robert Kraft became a millionaire and runs the best organization in the league and he's just going to lay down and say, we're going to let you have him? Nope. The price, according to this one-time NFL executive said, 3 number 1 draft picks. Would you give 3 number 1 draft picks for Bill Belichick if you were the New York Giants? 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. I would run to the checkout counter. I would run to the checkout counter and say, you don't even need to bag it. I'll just take my Bill Belichick to go. Thank you. Here are my 3 number 1 picks. The greatest NFL coach of all time, in my estimation, Bill Belichick, is worth your next 3 top picks. There's no doubt about it. And while coaches can largely be overvalued in the NFL, this is not one of them. And the truth of the matter is, if we take a quick stroll through the history of NFL coaches being traded from team to team, it's worked out pretty well for the buyer. The Bucs sent 2 number 1 picks, 2 number 2 picks, and $8 million to the Raiders in 2002 for John Gruden. Steep price. The Bucs got a Super Bowl out of it. Now, you can tell me that that was Tony Dungy's team. You can tell me that Gruden didn't have a great track record with the Bucs after he won that Super Bowl. You can tell me that the end of Gruden's run was pretty average football, but it did come with a Super Bowl trophy. In 2000, the New York Jets traded Belichick himself to the Pats for a number 1 pick. You think that worked out? 5 Lombardi trophies? Herm Edwards was traded from the Jets to the Kansas City Chiefs for a 4th-round pick. These trades, especially ones at the top end of the food chain, from Parcells to Belichick to Gruden, have generally tended to work out for the buyer. And if you're talking about the greatest coach of all time, in my estimation, 3 number 1s is a steal. Now, ultimately, in his article, Gary Myers says, here's what he would offer the Patriots if he were the New York Giants. He would offer them their 2nd-round pick this year, number 34 overall, their 1st-round pick next year, and a 2nd and a 4th in 2020. Now, I mean, if the Giants can pull that deal off, bravo, Dave Gettleman. Bravo, brand new general manager of the New York Giants. Bravo if you can get Bill Belichick at that price. And then the theory is you simply can't give up Sam Darnold or Josh Rosen this year. So hang on to that one and see if they'll take your top of the 2nd-round pick. But I'm going to tell you something. Even if you got to give up your Sam Darnold pipe dreams, you do it to get Bill Belichick. Nathan in Montana, you're on the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio. What's up, Nathan?
Hey, I'm a Browns fan, and I know that's kind of a little embarrassing since we already gave up Bill Belichick, but I would gladly give up every single pick the Browns have this year, from 1st round to 7th round, all 11, I believe they are. I'd give every one of them up just to get Bill Belichick back.
Nathan, I'm a Dallas Cowboy fan, and I would gladly give up the next 3 first-round picks of the Dallas Cowboys for Bill Belichick right now. This is simply an easy call for me. I don't have the data in front of me, but what is the hit and miss ratio on first-round draft picks as it is? Is it north of 50%? Is it north of 50%? Cerruti, see if we can find that out. That ought to be pretty Googleable. For a near certainty that you get the best NFL coach of all time at his peak. Now, let me tell you something. If you think you caught me in a contradiction, you did not. A little bit earlier in the show, I said, I'm not sure I'd want to bring in 66-year-old Nick Saban to reboot the New York Giants. I'm not sure that you're achieving peak motivation as you approach peak contentment in life. The data shows human beings are happiest, most content at about 70 years of age. I just had 75-year-old Bill Polian in here, Hall of Famer Bill Polian, personal success Bill Polian, who told me, Cerruti's right. You're talking about exceptions, not averages here. I'm talking about Saban and Belichick. You're talking about exceptions, not data on a graph. And I think you're right. But I'll tell you this. I also think Belichick's different than Saban. I think Saban going from, let's be honest, what is a comfortable fiefdom in Alabama, that he wears a crown and walks around from state to state, going from that existence to the New York media market is different than Bill Belichick moving from Boston to New York. And I also think you get Bill Belichick at peak anger. Peak prove it. Peak motivation.
You wouldn't get Saban at peak prove it?
No, I don't think he'd be as mad. You know, I keep using that saying. That's what my stepdad, Luke, some call him 4, he's from Center, Texas, says, you're working like you're mad at it. I am mad at it. I don't think Saban would come in mad at it. And I'm going to tell you this. I think Belichick wouldn't be mad at it. Ellis in South Carolina. What's up, Ellis?
Hi. So I was wondering, how long do you think Bill Belichick's going to be around? Like, do you think 3 first-round picks is worth the Belichick while he's been in the league?
Ellis, you're kind of breaking up, but I got the call. How long do I think I get with Bill Belichick? How long will he stick around? Would I give 3 first-round draft picks? I would answer that question with a question. How long do you think it would take him? I don't think it would take long for Bill Belichick to put in place in New York what he needs. So, let's say Bill Belichick stuck around for 3 to 4 years. If you get 1 Lombardi trophy in 3 to 4 years, would it be worth 3 first-round draft picks? If you get 2 in the next 4 years, would that be worth 3 to 4 draft picks?
There's no way you believe he's winning 1 or 2 Super Bowls in the next 3 years if he goes to the Giants, though.
Not many people have gotten rich betting against Bill Belichick. I'm not saying he's a magician, Cerruti. I'm not saying he's like a wizard and he's going to just conjure up trophies. But I also know that when Bill Belichick leaves, to Ellis's point, he doesn't disappear. He leaves a foundation, a culture. You would presume a team that could prosper on long after he's gone. The New England Patriots run will not end when Bill Belichick is not there. Culture, foundation, players that you've brought in, they'll all still be around. Even if you only get Bill Belichick for 3 years. And maybe it doesn't even give it the 1 Lombardi. I think there's a good chance that it would. And it doesn't get the 1 Lombardi. It's still worth those picks. To put your franchise on the right path.
I'll give you this.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. I'll give you this. Saban going to the Giants, people are going to be skeptical, including players on that team, right? I don't think anybody's skeptical when Belichick goes to the Giants.
You mean the guys in the building?
They buy in immediately. The guys, the players, all the people in the front office, they buy into Belichick. I think they're still skeptical of Saban.
Well, with Belichick, they just won't be there if they don't. I think they'd buy into Saban, by the way. Tweet the show through the 100flowers.com Twitter feed at Will Cain Show. Starting off the year with a little romance is easy at 100flowers.com. Right now, when you order a dozen multicolored roses for only $29.99, you'll get another dozen absolutely free. To order, go to 100flowers.com/ESPN. So one of the Dallas Cowboys has dropped a new rap album. You want to hear it? I'll play it for you. Give me just a minute. It's the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. It's the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app, presented by Progressive Insurance. All guests. We've had Marty Smith. We've had Bill Polian on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. You can hit me up on Twitter at Will Cain. That's WILLCAIN. You can hit us up on the 100flowers.com Twitter feed at Will Cain Show. I was listening this morning. I think I jumped the gun on John Gruden. You know, here's the thing. I sort of looked at John Gruden the same way I look at Nick Saban. I say, how does a guy go from this life to that life? How do you go from king of the mountain to the center of the New York media ire? How do you go from running your own show to answering to John Mara and the Tisch family? How do you kind of take what is a happy life full of success to a challenging life full of strife at age 66? And I applied that same thing to John Gruden. I said, the dude has been working for 9 years, show once a week, and I know he does a Gruden camp and all that, prepping for the games. You got to travel ahead of time. You interview all the coaches and all the teams, and that's really apropos to the point I'm trying to get to here, because he hasn't just been off. He hasn't just been sitting on a beach. It hadn't been 9 years and nothing. In fact, you could say it has been 9 years of a backstage pass. It has been 9 years of essentially spy-level work. Listen to Gruden.
I used to sit here as the coach of the Raiders wondering, what is Marty Schottenheimer doing? What is their facility like? I wonder how they practice. I wonder what their weight room looks like. And as a broadcaster, I got to go to all these teams. I got to see them practice. I got to see their facilities. I got to talk to their coaches. I learned a lot. Hopefully, it's an asset in this new job I have.
I think it will be an asset. He's been talking to head coaches, quarterbacks, players, on everybody he's about to compete with. Now, I'm not sitting here telling you that that's just the exact same level of experience as if he'd been coaching somewhere else for the past 9 years. I'm not telling you it's even of equal value, but what I am telling you is the dude hasn't been relaxing. He hasn't been completely out of the game. And he probably has gathered up some insight that you wouldn't have just as a normal coach in the NFL. I'm here to tell you, I think he's picked up a few things that are going to help when it comes to game day in the NFL.
But, well, he's not like trading trade secrets with like the Chiefs or whoever. Like, I don't know. Like, you think that they're giving all the information that they have in these meetings, pre-show? Like, they're not telling him what they're running on third down. He might have picked up like a few coaching pointers here and there, or hey, I can improve my facility this way or work out this way. There's no way he's learning anything that significant just by like doing an hour meeting with some coach before a Monday Night Football game.
First of all, I think they treat John Gruden differently than they would treat Sean McDonough or I don't know about Troy Aikman or Tony Romo or those guys. They treat him differently than your normal, average, in quotation, media. They treat him as a member of the club. They treat him as a trusted fraternity brother. They treat him as a guy who speaks their language. And do I think that opens them up and they share more? Absolutely. You know how reporters get in front of a locker room? One of the biggest mistakes I think reporters make is when they ask a question of an athlete in a locker room, their goal isn't to get an answer. Their goal is to prove to the athlete how much they know. Listen to the questions sometime. They're dissertations on how much they know that often don't end in a question mark. It's embarrassing. What is that? What do you care what that player thinks about your basketball knowledge? If he comes back and says you know nothing, who cares? The question still stands. Answer it. With John Gruden, their guard's down, man. He does know all those things. And I think they'd feel trusting. I think they'd want to do the opposite. In fact, I think they'd want to prove to John Gruden that they know the game, that they know things, and he'd get more out of them and have more information that they wouldn't want to give him than anybody else.
All right, give me an example. Like what could he have learned that would really help him?
Tendencies for players, tendencies for quarterbacks, adjustments you make during the game, defensive calls for certain scenarios. Why is it you do this? Why is it you put this coverage on?
Doesn't that stuff change all the time, though?
Oh, I'm sure it does. But, I mean, you've spent some time in their heads.
I'm more worried that he hasn't been doing this for 9 years. Like, you're not worried that the game might have passed him by a little bit. And I get it that he was in these meetings and he's still kind of with it because he was doing the Monday Night Football gig. But dealing with players day in and day out, that worries me more than the advantage he might get by sitting in a production meeting.
Well, my argument isn't that it's without worries. It's still the lifestyle worries the biggest for me. You go from, there's no doubt, a television lifestyle is much easier than a head coach in the NFL lifestyle. There is no doubt. But what I'm telling you is it's not all negatives, this 9-year layoff. In fact, it might come with some special insight that not only working might not have provided you, but working in the NFL might not have provided you. I'm telling you, he spent some time as a spy, man, on all these teams.
I mean, a lot of those coaches, 6 of them have been fired. I mean, a lot of they aren't the same coaches.
Les Bubba. Todd McShay, next, Will Cain Radio.